People, happy Friday and welcome to the Soft CEO or Soft Life CEO series. I am Desiree Cocroft. I am your Get Your Life coach, and I am here to continue this series on living your softest life. I've said it and I'll say it again. 2024 was my softest life ever, and I'm continuing to move into continuously having this soft life that I'm living as an entrepreneur, as a CEO of my own company, as well as a nonprofit co founder, and just a person that wants to live their best life because why not? We get one. So, today I want to talk about the identity shift that you get to have when you want more time and money. So, a lot of my clients come to me, they work full time. Some of them enjoy the jobs that they're in, others maybe not so much. And I think that there's something to be said about the shifting of your identity, regardless of what you decide to do. I am not that person that says you got to quit your job to have your best life. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that you need to do what's best for you, but I think you should consider what is going on up here. What is the mindset that you're having that's causing you to have the experience that you're having at your job? That doesn't mean that toxic workplaces do not exist. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is sometimes we can create a world that has a perspective that is negative because of how we are entering into the space, and all we see is the negative. So sometimes if we have a simple shift, that shift can help us see the possibilities in the current space that we're in versus having to leave that space. Other times, it does give us the empowerment to have a different perspective of the possibilities that we can have being in other spaces. And that is also a win too. So it's not just a one way, but you definitely, either way, need a shift in the way that you're thinking if you want to move your life forward. Now, if you want to just sit in your stuff, that's another thing. And there's no shame there because as human beings, sometimes we just want to be mad. We want to be frustrated. We want to soak in a thing and we want to stay in a state of a thing. But I'll tell you right now, if you want more time staying in a state of a thing that is not serving you is not going to help you accelerate getting to the things that you desire. And that's what I want to help you do. So, the first thing I think is important when you desire to shift your identity is to know what your current one is. And that takes a lot of self awareness. So, I've been reading or rereading the Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza. So, I picked it up about a year or so ago, life changing. And I've used a lot of techniques from this book to help me even shift my perspective on how I'm living my life so that I can work less in the sense of working so that I'm not using it as a form of validation, but working in a pace and working on things that matter most. So I'm not feeling overworked. And I think a lot of times, not I think, I know a lot of times my clients, when they come to me, they feel overworked. And they feel overworked because many times they're working from a place of getting the validation, looking for someone to tell them that they're doing a great job, telling them that they have the gold stars, all the things. And the reason that they do that is a lot of times it comes from just how they have leaned into their negative emotions. So I'm a positive intelligence coach as well. And saboteurs really come from that part of our brain that creates negative emotions. And so the saboteurs come to give us the tools to really self-sabotage ourselves. We get to that goal, but we get there using negative emotions. And many of us have done this. And even I still have to, navigate those saboteurs. So my number one, and why I talk about this so much, is people pleasing. The number one that I've had to overcome and navigate is people pleasing because I grew up always feeling like I needed to make everyone else happy. I wanted to feel like I didn't want to have conflict in our household or even when I was in other people's spaces. I didn't like when negative energy was around. So I would always be the person that would want to create harmony and just keep everything cool and collective. I wanted to be known as someone that is friendly and flexible. And so for a season, it worked for me being there. It actually was a form of protection for me to have that. So it worked for me. But as you all know, you go into adulthood, it no longer served me because now I'm doing things to my own demise. And so in that sense, I was working harder than I needed to. This is how I was feeling burnt out in a lot of the positions that I was in. I felt like I had to go over and beyond so that I wouldn't be looked at as that person that wasn't doing enough, or I wouldn't be disliked by coworkers and others for saying no. And so I had to have an identity shift. And I had a lot of momentum in having that kind of shift over the last year, but I was going over, my life. If you're always doing inner work, always looking to grow, you're going to look back over your life like, okay, what else could I do? Because I see that there are some things that I haven't seen yet, come to pass. And I'm like, okay, well, what other work do I need to do? And so I just re-picked up the book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And I'm like, ooh, I got some more work to do. So one of the biggest things when you are, looking to shift your identity is to know what your current one is. Like, are you living in an old identity? You think you're doing the new thing that you desire to do. Maybe it is to say no more, to have those boundaries. Maybe it is to keep your promises to yourself. Whatever those things are, you get to get real with yourself. So, like Dr. Now, if you ever watch 600 Pound Life, stop lying to yourself. Like, are you lying to yourself? Are you really doing the thing that you said you wanted to do? Or are you really falling back into old habits, into an old sense of self? And so I like to do that by thinking about, how do I think about myself? So I would encourage you to consider, okay, what are the thoughts that I'm having about myself right now? What are the thoughts that I'm having about myself? What are the thoughts that I'm having about my situation? What are my thoughts that I'm having about other people? The things that you say about yourself and the things that you say about your situation and the things that you say about other people can help you know where your head is at in terms of how you're identifying yourself. What kind of emotions, what kind of things that you're seeing about yourself can be really clear when you write down what you've been saying. And so sometimes we don't know because we're like on autopilot. We're on autopilot all the time. So this does take real intentionality to sit down and think about what you've been thinking about. So I would suggest take a little bit of time in the morning or right before you go to bed, or if you have a break in the middle of the day, and just jot down, what have been your thoughts, what has been on your mind. The power of journaling and the power of writing things down is really important because it helps your mind connect with your body because you're writing things down and what's coming out, and you will literally start feeling differently, and it will help you to really just kind of just see it all laid out on paper now, because it's not just all clouded in your mind along with the thoughts of, I got to brush my teeth, I got to pick up my kids. Now you have it on paper. So it's really easy for you to unfold what it is that you've been trying to figure out. What the heck is going on with me, right? So if you want to shift your identity to working less, one thing is to consider, okay, what is motivating me to work the way I'm working? And you get to ask yourself, am I in this space of feeling the need to be needed? Am I doing things that are other people's problems and I'm making it seem like it's urgent when it's really not? How are the things that I'm doing every day that have me burnt out? How are those things ways for me to be distracted from what I ought to actually be doing, which is saying no to someone or something that you actually want to do to further your life, but you use other people's problems, you use the things that people tell you to do or ask you to do, you say yes to it to distract yourself so that you don't have to do those things. There's another great book called oh goodness, why am I drawing a blank? But it's Louise Hay, and a lot of people may know who she is. Oh, Heal Your Life, right? And in it, it talked a lot about different behaviors that we use to distract ourselves when we really know that we ought to be doing something else. And this happens when we're in the middle of changing a habit. Sometimes we're in the middle of changing a habit, and in the middle of changing a habit, we might, do something that we are used to doing in that old identity. So maybe you want to get up in the morning, and instead of getting up because you've been practicing it, you go back to that old habit of, oh, I'll just lay here for a little bit. And so in her book, she has like a whole list of things that we do to distract ourselves. And you get to circle which ones are like you. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I do these things. Like, you'll get up and get something to eat instead of like sitting and finishing something. You're not even hungry, but you just get up. You'll find some way to like distract yourself from doing something that's in front of you. And so again, that's just something that our brain does to kind of trick us. It's that fight, flight, or freeze. And in this case, it's like a flight. Like, let me run away from what I know I need to do because it's uncomfortable. It's something that I'm stepping into that's different, and my brain is trying to find a way to distract me. If you see yourself doing things like that, write that down. Like, that's just good for you to have this information, this data, so that you can really identify what are those things that I know I'm doing to distract myself. It's kind of like protest behavior. I think about it like toddlers or kids, like they'll do, something to keep themselves from really cleaning up their room or doing their homework or eating dinner, and you're like, you could have did this by now, right? And so we can scold children or say that they need to be more disciplined, but think about your own life. Think about how you are doing those things. Maybe you're not eating dinner. Maybe you're not like screaming and crying, but you're doing something that is distracting yourself from what you know is going to help you work less. That's the crazy thing, is that a lot of the things that we desire to do to step into another identity, to be a better version of ourselves, is actually going to help us feel better. But we have to first feel the discomfort of the new shift that we're going to having. So working less is one thing that a lot of my clients desire to do. And it's not that they're lazy, they're actually achieving women. They do amazing things. They build companies, they run teams, they run households, they do amazing things in their life. They're doing it at a place where now they're really starting to feel that difference between being an achiever or being a hyper achiever, like being in overdrive, and they're feeling the effects in their body and in their personal life. And that's where the rubber hits the road. It's like, okay, we need to do something different here. And in terms of making more money, sometimes we get in our own way because we don't really recognize that we are enough, especially if you've been a hyper achiever. You compare yourself to other people, you're thinking like, okay, I got to do this and this in order to feel deserving of what I actually desire. And so you will work yourself tirelessly when all you have to do is decide that that's what you get to make. Whether you are talking about a salary, whether you are talking about raising your rates in your business, you get to decide, this is what I get to make. I had this moment, this epiphany, which is why it made me get back into my book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, is because I was going to lower one of my rates. And I was going to lower one of my rates because I was like, oh man, everything is going on in the economy. And I was, one coach, oh my goodness, it's been a while since I've listened to her because I'm not on IG, Jerisha Hawk, shout out, I really love her. She said something years ago, and I'll never forget it. She would say, get out of people's wallets, get out of people's pocketbooks. And I'm like, you are right. And, sometimes we can make all the excuses when it's really not about them. It's about us and what we believe we deserve. And it's about us seeing what we offer as worthy of the price point that we desire it to be. And so between, being reminded of that statement and getting back into breaking the habit of being myself, because my old self, that was like my old self. I would worry about, oh, are people going to be able to do this? Should I even offer this? When my new self, who I am today, because I get to step into it now, is like, everything that I do is clearly worth more than I'm ever going to charge, because it's life changing for the people that are taking on the services that I bring them. It's allowing them to live a totally different life than they've ever been able to live. And that's priceless. And so I get to charge the price. The price is the price. And so the same thing with salary. There was a time where I did not negotiate. And I love this organization and my old boss, but I didn't negotiate my salary. I was very green. And I don't even want to say I was green. Well, kind of. I was green, and I was still very much a people pleaser. I wasn't working on boundaries or anything at that time. I was deep in that people pleaser mode. And instead of negotiating and, leaving the deal on the table, not really trusting that another opportunity would be for me if this wasn't, I took it. And as a result, I stayed in that position, really enjoyed the position. But later on, someone else that doesn't look like me went ahead and negotiated and got what he wanted. And so that was a big lesson for me. And even like full circle, having that conversation, even with my past boss, and just the power of negotiating. And I left. I take responsibility for leaving it on the table. And I said, I would never do that again. I'm not going to leave it on the table. I will be willing to walk away. And it doesn't mean that everything is always going to look the way you thought it was going to look. Sometimes, you have a business, and, you have, a package or a service. Even if it doesn't sell the first couple of times, it doesn't mean it's the price. It might mean it's just the customer. It might mean it's your own energy too. I sold the program that I was working with. You all know, if you've been following me, Get Your Life Academy. And when I was selling that, program, that actually is about to end in 2 weeks. I'm so excited for the ladies that participated. But even when I was going to sell that program, I've actually sold programs for way more than that, but I was still nervous. I was still nervous about the price, and I've sold things for way more than that. And so that just goes to show sometimes that we can just get in our own way because there's a part of us that is afraid of, if we have that exchange, whether it's a salary exchange or whether it's an exchange in, products or services, that it says something about us if we charge a certain thing. And I was having this moment, and I'm actually going to jump off because I have another meeting, but I wanted to get this in with you all, that when I was growing up, there were so many things said about money. And that's another identity shift that I've been working through. So many things said about money. And especially now, if you live in America in the climate that we're in, people got a lot of things to say clearly about billionaires and people that make a lot of money. And I came from a low income household, like my parents, did the best that they can, like they were blue collar workers. And I'm like, that don't matter. That's not my message. Like, I get to make whatever I desire to make. And I'm going to be the person that does good on what I bring in. And I had to let go of what everybody in the world is saying about making money. I get it. There are some crummy people that make money, but it's some poor people that are crummy. Let's be real. It's poor people, it's middle class people, it's rich people that are wrong, negative, whatever you want to call it. And so does that mean that people that would do goodwill, that like have the purpose to do well with what they bring in, should not, because that is evil? It is like you have to almost unlearn, not almost, you get to unlearn that money is evil, because people people do evil things, people do mean things, people do negative things. That doesn't mean that has to be you. Most times, and I've heard someone else say this, and I'm sure you've heard this too, that money just amplifies more of what you already are if you don't decide to change who you are. It's like most people were like that already. The thing didn't always change the person changed before the thing came. Now, I think that there are exceptions to that rule, but at the end of the day, I had to realize, like, oh, I grew up with a lot of thoughts about, like, it's wrong to do this, it's wrong to have this much money. You should just, as long as you can make ends meet, it's fine. And here's the thing. I think that there's no like number that anybody has to have. I think that you get to define what success is for you, and you get to have that. And there's nothing wrong for you desiring to have that. Now, if you're doing it because you think that's what you need, if you're doing it because it's an arbitrary number in your head and you have like no real, write the vision, make it plain about it, I think that you need to just come back to the ground and write out what it is that you actually desire from that number. That's what it comes to, like salary. That becomes with your business. If you have this desire to have a 6-figure business, 7, 8-figure business, I don't think anything is wrong with that. I think that I desired like this multi-million dollar business at one point because I felt like that was what success was. If I did that, then girl, you did the thing. Like, I am so proud of you. But at the end of the day, I have created a multi 6-figure business as a nonprofit when I was 23 years old. And so now that I'm doing my, for-profit business, which is this coaching, consulting, speaking, training, business that I have now, I get to decide, like, well, what does success look like for me? It doesn't have to look like what I think is successful. What feels like success for me? What would feel good to me? And so that's what you get to do too. So shifting your identity, decide where you want to go. But before you can start making moves there, I think it's really important to get a really good taste of where you are right now. And then, start doing the work of, well, where do you want to go? And then we can start talking about filling the gap. And I'll be back. I have a meeting, so that's why I'm about to jump off. But if you like this, go ahead, like, share, subscribe, or, connect with me, follow all the things. Let me know if there's other things you want me to talk about. And I can't wait to talk to you more later about this Soft Life CEO series. And I'm going to drop below, if you want to come to my workshop, that's going to be on August 24th. I have a masterclass, Soft Life CEO Blueprint. And so if you're a high achieving woman and you want to have a softer life, and you want to still be assertive and get the things that you desire, but you also want to lean back and be able to do it in a way that feels better than you, then you need to be at this webinar on April 24th, and I'll put the link down below. Until the next time, have a great Friday. Bye.